Soviet flag Russian tank column meets devastating defeat in Kursk. Using mines and drones, Ukrainian forces successfully repelled Russian Marines' attack, involving over 10 tanks and company-sized personnel in the west of the Ukrainian-held area. A Russian attack force of the 155th Marine Brigade, advancing with Soviet flags flying from their vehicles, suffered significant losses during an attempted assault in Kursk Oblast. Russian forces reportedly launched the attack with over 10 tanks and approximately a company-sized unit of personnel, trying to reclaim Nikolsky hamlet on the western rim of the Ukrainian-held salient. Despite their numerical advantage, Russian forces sustained heavy casualties from minefields and Ukrainian drones. Several Russian tanks were equipped with mine-clearing rollers as they tried to break through Ukrainian defenses. Ukrainian FPV drones and bomber drones carried out continuous attacks on the advancing troops, damaging and destroying armored vehicles. Mines blew up some of the Russian vehicles, drones struck others, and also hounded the dismounted infantry. One shell-shocked Russian crewman bailed out of his damaged vehicle, trudged a few steps through the snow, fell flat onto his back, and then exploded as a drone slammed into him. Ukrainian military news portal Militarny noted that the Russian command had planned a two-wave attack with a planned pause between the waves. The initial wave was intended to exhaust Ukrainian defenses and create a false sense of security through a feigned retreat. The 155th Marine Brigade was then supposed to break through the supposedly weakened positions in the second wave. The plan failed due to several factors, Militarny reported. Instead of a short pause between attacks, a full day passed, allowing Ukrainian troops to rest. In addition, the Russians launched their second attack in bright daylight conditions, which gave Ukrainian troops time to locate the enemy and plan their response effectively. The Russian attack, which lasted about 40 minutes, ultimately failed due to the lack of engineering reconnaissance along the main axis of the attack, which led to the defeat of the Russian units. Earlier reports, Ukrainian drones were watching the whole time as a lone Russian BTR-82 wheeled fighting vehicle raced across the shell-pocked no man's land in broad daylight outside Pokrovsk recently. Firing its autocannon as it moved, the vehicle succeeded in reaching the ruins of a building. The 11 Russian infantry packs surely didn't know the drones were waiting directly overhead. They didn't know, as they piled out of the vehicle, they had seconds to live. The drones from the Ukrainian 5th Assault Brigade dropped bombs on the hapless infantry, killing all 11. The small, unsupported, and doomed assault is indicative of wider trends across the 800-mile front line of Russia's wider war on Ukraine as the conflict grinds into its 36th month. Attacks might last a few minutes before most or all of the attackers are dead or wounded. Many Russian recruits die within days of deploying to the front line. A first-person view drone flew at him with a TNT block. That was it. They turned you to dust straight away. In the busiest sectors, there are 5 Ukrainian drones for every Russian soldier. The Ukrainians' overwhelming drone advantage doesn't mean they're winning the war, but it might be preventing them from losing as Russia continues mobilizing more soldiers and marching them into battle with less and less support. The lucky Russians rode on dwindling numbers of armored vehicles, but the Russians were still advancing. But every yard they gained came at a cost. 10 months after first attacking Chasiv Yar, a fortress town in eastern Ukraine, Russian troops have finally managed to advance, at times only briefly, into the town's central district. The Ukrainian 24th Mechanized Brigade and adjacent units aren't making it easy for them. Taking advantage of Ukraine's newfound tank advantage, the 24th Mechanized has engaged infiltrating Russian paratroopers at point-blank range. On or before February, a Russian assault drawn from one of the 3 air assault and airborne regiments arrayed east of Chasiv Yar made a run into the ruins of the town center, which has absorbed relentless Russian bombardments since last spring. The Russians in their 2 BMD-4 infantry fighting vehicles came to a bad end. Ukrainian infantry hit 1 BMD with a rocket-propelled grenade, apparently destroying it. The surviving BMD was helpless to resist when one of the 24th Mechanized Brigade T-72 tanks rolled right up to it and blasted it with a 125mm tank round from just 100 feet away. It would have been unusual earlier in the war for a Ukraine tank to fight that close, but the battlefield of Russia's 35-month wider war on Ukraine is changing in ways that favor Ukrainian armored forces, even as Russian troops, who outnumber Ukraine troops, continue to slowly advance, albeit it at enormous cost. The sheer number of Ukraine drone hovering over the 800-mile front line, tens of thousands arrive at the front every month, means Russian tank can only operate from covered positions. One Russian blogger complained in a long missive, translated by Estonian analyst, war translated.